I first heard about the quilt when it was launched. 35 years ago, I was an adult and watched it on the National Mall and was overwhelmed at that point with what it represented. The number of deaths and really the number of reported deaths, the people who took the time to make a panel, who felt comfortable. So we all knew that that first display in Washington, was a fraction of the reality of what was really going on. The quilt panel we made is for my brother, Peter Vincent Zullo. Peter was born in 1944 on June 12th. Today is his birthday. Would have been his 78th birthday. He was an activist. He was an advocate. He had a huge heart. He was literally that type of person that would give you the shirt off of his back, like literally. He lived here in San Francisco probably from, I want to say, mid-70s and early to mid-70s until he died. I thought about the first time making a panel at the 10th anniversary of Peter's death. So he died on May 30th of the year 2000, and in 2010, right around his anniversary, every year I would always speak with his friends who were out here, Gwyneth, who was his main friend and who ran his hospice team. And so at that point, I said to her, we should really do a panel in Peter's honor. And she said, yeah, sure, let's do it. And that was the end of that. I was working, I was head of the PTA, I had 2 young children, and it's quite a process. It's a big deal to make one of those panels. It takes time. And that went by for another 10 years. And then 2020 came, which was the 20th anniversary of Peter's death. And this time we were all under lockdown because of COVID-19. And I reached out to Gwyneth and I said, maybe now we'll have time to put this together. So we did. We started a series of Zoom meetings. I was the only person on the East Coast. The other 4 people were out here on the West Coast. From the time that we started talking, which was in May of 2020, we sent off the quilt in April of 2021. So it took just about a year. There was a lot of math in making this panel because it has to be 6 by 3, but you have to leave, edging for them to sew it in. And since we were 5 people doing it and we were trying to figure out how to make it symmetrical or not symmetrical, but we decided we were going to make it symmetrical, which meant that there was a lot of math involved. So we had a plan and it was very personal. I wanted, for the people who were contributing portions of it, I wanted it to be very personal and specific to them. I didn't want to dictate anything. And I just know that these were things that that were meaningful to each of the individuals' relationship with my brother. There are things I don't know, and that's okay, because the panel is not about me, it's about Peter. So there's a big, across the middle in this goldenrod. And the top part has his birth date, the bottom part has his death date, and then one side has Peter, and the other side has Zullo, and then in the middle is this handwritten letter. And then in each of the quadrants are the components that were provided by the other panel makers. And then there are photographs that I supplied, photographs from my personal library. And one is of Peter in Death Valley, and the other is him jumping out of the airplane. And then there is a picture of him with the Golden Gate Bridge behind him. And then there is a photograph of him and Max. And Max was his best friend, partner, part Great Dane, this huge dog. Max was around for a long time. And Max died not too long after Peter did. There was a therapeutic, cathartic element in doing this. because I don't think I ever really grieved the death of my brother. When he died, I had to come home. I had 2 small children. I worked full time. He was always very far away. Our relationship was, for the most part, a telephone relationship, except for when I would come out and visit him. So when he died, I was used to him not being around me every day, and that made it easier to pretend that it didn't happen. So I never did grieve him. I was here when he was under hospice care for a few days, but he actually made me go home. He didn't want to die with me there. After he died, then they did a ceremony for him out here and planted a tree, and he was cremated, and I didn't come back for that. So I just never really grieved him. I sort of pretended he was still out here. Doing this panel has helped me put closure on that, I guess, in a way. And again, I still feel like he's not really gone. He's just always been with me, and now he's part of this panel. So memorializing him and honoring him has helped me have closure, come to terms with it. Yesterday, when I was part of that ceremony and opening it up, I'm so grateful that I got to open up his panel. We unfolded it and we picked it up and we kind of went like this. And then we placed it down on the ground. And there was something in that moment of putting it down on the ground, and it was very grounding. And at that moment, I just sort of touched him, and I felt like we made peace with each other. Like, I felt like him saying, like, it's okay. That's what I got from that experience yesterday. Like, it's okay. My hopes for the future of the quilt is that one day there won't be any more panels to be made. My hope is also that the quilt stays safe. I know that what I learned yesterday was that it's all together now, it's in storage, it's being taken care of, but I want to make sure that that building is protected. I want to make sure that our elected officials, that this is in their face, that through the advocacy of making panels and educating, that something gets done, that there really is a day where there are no more quilt panels being sent in because people stop dying from AIDS.